And that's the thing is at this time where I'm not a leader in anything besides the media team. I'm a background dude mostly. And that was something I felt comfortable with.
And the youth ministers would come up to me and say, hey, want to become a part of the youth leadership?
And I'm like, dude, I don't feel called by the Lord to do this. I don't want to do this. I just feel like I'm overwhelmed. I got a lot of stuff with the media team. Look, if the Lord really, if you really think I should be there, of the Lord, then all right, well, let's go. But so I was always resisting that. And so it was a very interesting time here at 2023. It was just I'm kind of just doing my media stuff, going to church. We're just cruising along. I have a good job. I love my family, and we're doing good. Not thinking this is the call at all. And so later on, we finally get to September of 2023. My good friend, who I've talked to before, that helped me with the depression stuff, he's like, hey, he encourages me to, because he hears about what my mom's going through and how the leadership of a lot of the world's treating my widowed mom not well. Paul Malcolmson is treating her, like accusing her, false accusations, all these things. But I don't know who's in the wrong here at the moment. I remember my good friend comes up to me and says, hey, comes over to my apartment. He's like, hey, dude, I just letting you know that your mom is, you need to be there for your mom. You're a young man and she has this thing coming up, and I feel like I want to be there for her, but I feel like because you're the oldest son, to be there for your mom in this meeting. I'm like, okay, well, all right, okay, I hear what you're saying. I go research in the Bible, and I find that okay, like the eldest, if the husband's not there, they pass away. The widowed mom, it's the family members, the immediate family members first, like the oldest son or the daughters, whoever's there to help take care of their widowed mom. Then anybody extended family. Nobody's willing to take care of them in the church. So just learning learning how like the chain of command basically of taking care of widowed mom. And so like, okay, well, I'm there for her. So go up to this meeting. I'm not really like fluent in what's going on. She's telling me some things for the past couple months about what like this and that, and I'm just like kind of like not accepting everything because I don't know what's really going on. Like, I don't know if Pastor Paul's bad. It's just that, like I don't know what's going on, but at the same time, like I don't know if you're 100% true either. But it's like really weird. I don't know how to think about it. I'm thinking Paul Malcolmson's still a man of God, and my mom's a woman of God. I know that. I just didn't know how to reconcile this weird thing that was going on. Go to the meeting. We're there, and this is already recapped in the previous video, so I won't go through it. But we were there, and I'm just sitting there, and we go through it. My mom gets heated every once in a while. Sometimes I pat her on the side. I'm like, hey, just calm down a little bit. And then, Paul Malcolmson, at the very end, my mom apologizes. And then Paul Malcolmson gives her a hug. And it's like 3 hours, and I don't want to be there anymore. And but I'm like there for whatever. I didn't really know if anything was accomplished, but I'm trying to play both sides, like understand where Paul Malcolmson's coming from, understand where my mom's coming from. And then, they hug or whatever, and I leave. I don't really feel amazing like anything at all, but I guess we're done, so we're leaving. We leave. And then, so there's that. I guess it's resolved. And then, my mom tells us later on.
A couple weeks later, because VBS, and then we went to New Mexico.
She comes back from a trip. She calls me, a family trip, and she calls me and she's like, "Hey, I'm not going to Light of the World anymore. You can do what you want to do, but I'm not going." She stayed or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't remember how I reacted. Either way, I was still going. I'm still going to Light of the World.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom and all my younger siblings who are under 18 aren't going, and it's a very strange thing. But I'm not overthinking this. It's stupid. And then Sunday, September 10th, 2023, I'm there, and it's official that my mom is not going. There are my siblings except for one. I had my one sister was there with me, and I'm sitting there in the Decatur service, and I've gotten no contact from the pastor about anything that went on, mom leaving or anything, nothing. I'm just sitting there and I'm not thinking anything of it. And I see like the evangelistic service, people raise their hand, Paul Malcolmson gives like kind of an altar call with the hands though, and like you raise your hand if you want to know the Lord. I'm like, there's some new people in there. I'm like, you know what? I told my sister, I'm like, this is where I see the Lord moving here. I believe I'm called to the media team or whatever. I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not going to leave. You can do. Here's the thing. You can do. Tell my sister. You can do whatever you feel the Lord wants you to do. I feel I'm supposed to stay here at Light of the World and continue to go here and help with the media and all this stuff. You can do whatever you feel is good. You can, if you feel like the Lord's calling you to never come back, then do that. If you feel like you're supposed to stay, then do that. But don't let me pressure you. She's like, okay, I'll think about that. And the service ends. So I was pretty adamant about staying at Light of the World. 2 days later, so this is Monday, Tuesday. It's that Tuesday. 2 days later, on September 12th, I am driving to the Bible study, which was supposed to, it usually is a Bible study. It was a prayer night, and this was announced as a prayer night. That Sunday was announced as like a prayer night with important things that Paul Malcolmson announced as the prayer night. I have some important things I want to share. It's about 20 minutes, but I feel like I have to share with you guys. And so like, okay, so I'm going to the prayer service from work where he's going to give this 20-minute whatever recap of whatever he needs to tell us. And I'm driving, and I'm feeling not good. I'm driving, I'm just like, something's off. I'm like, Lord, if there's any sin in me or whatever, you just take it away. And then also, Lord, your will be done, not my will be done. I'm thinking about things, driving there, and all of a sudden I'm like going through really like dark mental time. I don't know where it's coming from. And I find, I'm just working through it. Lord, your will be done. You must increase. I must decrease. You have to do this. It's just coming out. It's just all this stuff. And it's like all this, it gets really, really dark. I say, Lord, help in like multiple ways. And then it's like the light shines. Also, like, okay, I'm getting there. I'm just going to get there. And I get there to the Bible study. Or the prayer night. I walk in, I sit down. I'm listening to what he's saying. And it is eye-opening. Like the Lord, it was as if like I didn't see any of this stuff happen, but the best way to describe it is like when Paul the Apostle has scales on his eyes, and he says he went to Ananias. I think it's Ananias.
I think so too.
Whatever the guy's name was, the guy prays for him, and his scales fall off his eyes, and he's born again. It's filled with the Holy Spirit. That's the best thing I could describe. I'm sitting there underneath his 20-minute, like it's supposed to be a 20-minute, like important thing Paul Malcolmson has to say. It ends up being like an hour and 20 minutes of him just ranting about this and that. And I'm there, and it's like scales fall off my eyes, and I'm like, I can see everything for what it is. I'm like, these people are agreeing to this guy who is talking about, and I could see in some of the PowerPoints and some of the stuff he was talking about that he is talking about my mom, and he's talking about some of the other ladies that left Light of the World. He's talking about, but the one I had in my mind was my mom. He's talking about mom, and what is all this? He's like going off about these demons. He says there's 9 different things for what's coming against the church. He says witches. He says demon. He says demons. He says witch. He says principalities, powers. He says territorial spirit. He says there's more. He said 9 of them. About 9. There could be more or less, but like about 9 of them. And I'm like, well, which one is it? Is it the territorial spirit or is it the principality? Which one is it? And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is crazy. He goes on and on. Then we end up having like a 20-minute prayer session after that. And then we all leave. The whole time I'm nodding my head. I don't know how to react to this yet. I'm nodding my head and saying yes as if I always did. Like I'm agreeing with everything he's saying because I don't know. This is my first time actually being in there and actually finally knowing what's going on. This guy is preaching wrong. Paul Malcolmson is preaching wrong. So I'm going along with the crowd, nodding my head. And this is why I bring this up. It's because I was acting again. I was not born again, Light of the World. I was pretending to be a Christian. But now I'm Light of the World and I'm a Christian. And I'm pretending that I am actually agreeing with the pastor talking. And that was interesting for me because it was like, I haven't felt that for so many years, to have to act again. That's weird, to feel like an outcast. I'm looking on everybody else, even though I'm acting and saying yes, I'm like, I can't believe all you guys are agreeing with this and not being appalled by what he's saying. And so I leave, and I'm talking to my sister, and I'm like, I can't be here anymore. This is not right. This is not right. What's going on? It's horrible what he is doing. I cannot believe some of the things he has said in there. And that was the Lord opening my eyes. That's why God was preparing me. 2 days, he opens my eyes and says, well, this is all wrong. I was thinking it's all right. 2 days before, I said, I'm staying. 2 days later, I'm saying, I'm going. I'm leaving. I can't be here anymore. This is wrong. This is not right. I'm starting to realize that I'm like not with my mom. I'm not with my, like they're not in church. What is wrong with this picture? I didn't see that. Now I'm seeing there's something wrong with this picture. And anyway, so then the next day, I'm visiting all these other people. So the next day, Wednesday, on September 14th, I'm visiting a family at Light of the World. But I don't believe I should be at Light of the World. So that was really weird. Visiting this family, I had it scheduled already. I had time talking to them, whatever. And I'm acting again. I'm like, it's not what I believe. It's not who I am. And then it goes on to the next one, the next day. So it's Thursday, September 15th. I visited a former friend. I went over to his house because it was his birthday. And we're celebrating, we're playing Monopoly, and we're having a good time, but I'm like, I'm still acting. This is not, I know what's going on at Light of the World is wrong, and I'm just trying to push through to Sunday. Then Saturday, on September 16th, I visit one of the board members' places, and I talk to them and help them out with some of their computer stuff. It's their private stuff, and they're great people. I love helping them out. But I'm like acting again. I'm acting like I'm part of Light of the World when mentally and spiritually I'm not there anymore. I know I'm physically there, but I'm not there. I don't want to be there. This whole week, God is like, I don't want to make it sound like God is like directly telling me things like I'm someone who's superior or anything. I don't have anything special. We're his people, we're his sheep, we're his children. And God talks to us. All of us who have his spirit, God talks to us. He ministers unto us. He speaks to us through his word. And I felt like one of the things like God wanted me to tell Paul Malcolmson was that thou art the man, which comes from, it says Nathan had to tell David that you committed, you tell him, you're in sin, David. You are the man. You're that one sheep you stole. That's you. You think it's somebody else, but that's you, David. You are the perpetrator. You've done this. It wasn't planned out necessarily. It's just, this is what happened. This is the thing I felt like the Lord wanted me to do. So I'm on that Sunday. I walk in that Sunday to church. Paul Malcolmson is, I'm sitting him up with the mic. How's your sermon? How'd it go preparing your sermon? Oh, it was all right. It was hard to get it done, but it was easy to get the sermon or something like that. All right, cool. And then he starts talking to me about all this other stuff. He starts talking to me about the things I don't even know why he's telling me. Some personal stuff and some stuff about his family or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right, that's very strange you're telling me this. And then we walk out of the room, and he's mic'd up. I have to go back to the booth, and then he's talking to me, and he starts telling me, oh yeah, we should meet up. We were talking about meeting up this Sunday. And they're like, yeah, we should meet if we finish meeting up this Sunday. And he's talking about this different things, and I don't know. I don't remember all the things he was telling me, but he keeps talking to me. He's telling me like all these things about the will of God or whatever, and I'm like, I'm like trying to get away. I'm trying to leave, and then he's talking to me, and then eventually I'm like, okay, and I'm like, yeah, cool. I have to get back to the media booth. I run back to the media booth. I'm there in the media booth, and it's they're going through their service like normal, and then they're at the time when they're doing praise reports. And I feel like I need to stand up and say something. So I get up, I grab the mic when they handed it around. I got the mic, and I said, hey, as the leader of the media team here at Light of the World Gospel Ministries, I want to let you guys all know that I resign. And Paul Malcolmson, thou art the man. I start getting like higher voice. Thou art the man. And I said, my mom, I didn't really phrase it correctly. Words were not coming out the way I wanted them to. So I said, my mom up there on the hill, and I turned to turn to James 1:27, and I read him this. I read him, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world. While I'm talking and saying this, Paul Malcolmson, he says, this is not the time or place. I do say, comes out, shut up. I tell him to shut up. Well, the whole congregation, they know this is just what it is. And during the time I'm saying this, he tells one of the elders to get up and escort me out. Listens what I have to say for a little bit longer. Gets up, opens the door to the booth, waves me out. I kind of jog out of the church and I run, and I'm like jogging down the road, and he yells a question. I just have one question to ask. I'm like, I don't have time to talk. I just have one question to ask, he says.
That's the board member.
The board member's saying this. And I turn, I'm like, what do you want to say? And he's like, did you go to him about this before you did this? Before you came up and said all this stuff? And I said, I can't talk about these things right now. And I run, I get in my car, and I drive up to my family's place. And then I never stepped foot in Light of the World ever since. And so I know it's kind of weird. I know it's kind of strange. I know it's a very odd thing, but they kept preaching Matthew chapter 5, I believe, where it says, if your brother offends you, go to him. If you can't get it worked out, to bring 2 or more witnesses. If you still can't get it worked out, then bring it before the church.
Yeah, Matthew 18.
Matthew 18, yeah.
That only works with believers. It doesn't work with wolves in sheep's clothing.
No, it does not. But I think it's interesting, though, because they were saying that we weren't doing that, even though other ladies and my mom were taking a bunch of slack for years, a bunch of verbal and spiritual abuse from Paul Augustine for years. And when they wanted to talk, they wanted to come together and talk. It didn't want it. And then the board, they wanted to get it before the whole board. They didn't want it. And it's just, no matter what they wanted to do, yet still be safe and not be singled out. If they wanted to come as a group, it was still denied by the board or Paul Malcolmson directly. And there was no way to do it. But even if we are doing it's all a matter of interpretation then of Matthew 18, where it's like, they think we didn't do the first step. And I'm like, we did. In my mind, I'm thinking we did the first and second step. Now it's time to bring it before the church. So here it is out in the open. And so that's why I said that on that Sunday. He is the man. And, perfect religion is undefiled before God is to, take care of the fatherless and the widows in their affliction. And that command in James is to everybody. It's not to a specific person. It is to everybody. If you want to have pure and undefiled religion, God's word, God's character, you have to do that. And they were not doing it to my mom. They were not helping out my mom. Where's all this money going? All these tithes. My mom was even tithing. It's going towards a new building. But if they can't take care of the widows, if they can't take care of the fatherless, if they can't take care of their own people with the funds that they have, not just funds, but physically everything. There's times when people in Light of the World would help individually. That was a thing. There's people with real hearts that wanted to help. I don't want to be unfair about this. There was times, even with elders we don't agree with now, that actually did help at times. The thing is, though, is that it wasn't the theme. That was not what they were doing. There was times where my mom would ask for something, and it was like almost as if it needed to be an advice session or something. That's not how it's supposed to be, because it does say, James does talk about it in the book of James. He says, if you have somebody who's in need, they ask for clothing or whatever, and you say, well, you know what, pray for them, God be upon you, and you send them away. He said, you've done nothing. And that's what was happening at Light of the World, this religious idea of, we care for the people, we love the people, you're our family, all these things. But your tithe money and your time was invested in the Light of the World was not ultimately respected. Maybe at the beginning, maybe they'd give you, like, thank you for all these things or whatever. But it was not actually respected because there was no physical compensation for any of the work that you did when you needed it. And then also the tithe money, I don't agree with anything now. I don't agree with how they're handling the money. They're building a new building, but they're not taking care of the people they have already inside that church, that cult. They're not taking care of their own people. And I'm not saying like give away money for free, but they're not even helping the vulnerable among them with what they need. Then that's what's really sad about that. And the people who do care and who do actually care about all those people are usually individuals in Light of the World. Ones that it's not Light of the World as a whole, it's these individuals that will go and help out this widow or help out this child who has no parents or one parent or this person who's elderly or whatever. It's always these individual people. And that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be where, no, this is the body. The money is not the church's anyway. It never was like a physical board elder said. The money's not the board's anyway. The money's not the pastor's anyway. All throughout Acts, every time the money was shared, it was always a willing offering. And then they were simply distributors. They weren't meant to keep it and hoard it. James even talks about how that thing's going to burn. All the money's going to burn and rot. All the grain's going to burn and rot. And so what's the point? And I believe that's what Light of the World is doing. They're collecting so much grain. They're collecting so much money. They're collecting this and that and the other. It doesn't matter if it's $1 or if it's $1 million. If they're not handling it as this is literally a tool that's like to help everybody out. Like this is literally like given to us to help redistribute to people in need. If they don't understand that, which is what James is talking about, they're literally heaping more and more damnation unto themselves. And so, anyway, there's that. There's that. But yeah.
And God, He cares about His sheep more than a building.
Correct.
At Light of the World, the building's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, like back when in 2019 and 20, for school, we homeschool, we were learning about the U.S. Constitution and the Institute on the Constitution. So we were learning what is the role of government, and it's supposed to be small government that's held accountable because they knew men were evil.
Correct.
And sin problems and stuff like that. So what's the role of the church? What's the role of the government? What's the role of families? So that was one of the things that was conflicting for us when 2020s and lockdown started happening. And also we were watching you work full-time work, and you were a helper in little things. You were very considerate, to those around and cleaning up and different things. But also, you were full-time doing the media.
Correct.
And we're just watching you, and we're like, man, this guy needs a break. But just more keeps being asked of you.
And I didn't know how to say no.
A lot of us don't know. There's a lot of givers usually don't know how to say no. You're like, what does God not want me to do? It seems like everything's for God, and there's all these things to do for God.
But you attribute for God with for Light of the World. You attribute, if I am serving God, I therefore am serving the pastor or the eldership or the people or the building. It was a lot of building, like the house of God at Light of the World. When the thing is, it's like the Bible always talks about the church as an entity as a whole. It's a body. And no, it's not fractured like a lot of people like think it is. It's not like, well, you're a liver and you're over here and you're an eyeball and you're over there. No, the body as a whole is a whole. Like all the world that is believers is the whole body. If there's two churches, two buildings with a group of believers, and they identify with two different things, but in them, there are actually true born-again believers. If there are two churches right across the street from each other, those people on the other side, the ones that are actually born again, are just as much your brother and sister as the people that are right around you. There should be no division. In fact, that type of division where it's like everybody's identified with a creed, with a name. That's the thing. We were non-denominational, but we were like proud that we were part of the Bible-believing Light of the World Church.
That was our identity. Our identity stopped becoming like just in Christ. It became our identity and security became in Light of the World Gospel Ministries and what the pastor would say and think about you.
Correct.
So
and
identity.
Paul the Apostle in the Bible, not the Paul in Light of the World, Paul the Apostle in the Bible says, I hear that some of you guys are saying, I am of Paul, I am of Apollos, I am of even Christ. He says, is God's body divided? He asked that question, is Christ divided? No, Christ is not divided. Every time we identify ourselves with a denomination, with a name of a person, whether it be Calvinism or Arminianism or any of that isms, or Lutheranism or Catholicism, any of that, you're taking, first of all, you're saying this person, this human flawed being, I don't care if they're born again or not, this flawed being, we're going to go with whatever they said. They are our creed. They should never be your creed. It should be Christ alone only and what he says in his word. That's why you can't have, that's the issue with naming yourself with a denomination. Even non-denominational. We were considered a non-denominational church, yet we felt that we were the best one on the block. We were the best one in the state. We were almost one of the best ones in the world. A lot of religious pride. I felt it. That's why I didn't want to leave. That's why I felt, oh, God still. That's why it was so hard. One of the reasons why it's so hard to leave is because you think everything revolving around this God-ordained thing when it wasn't God-ordained, and it's actually a cult, and it's actually evil, and you don't know it, but because you're in there. And that's the thing, is it has all the masking and all the accolades of being a Christian church. But that's the point of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
And we thought we had the best.
And a false church is, it looks and tries its best to be real gold. But when the pressure comes, it'll shatter because it's not real gold. It's like the sand. It's like the sand's solid while the water doesn't hit it. You have a house built on sand and a house built on the rock. You won't know the difference till the water hits it. When the water hits it, you'll know which one's built on the rock and which one's built on the sand. Jesus told that parable on purpose. And the reason why is until the rough waters came that it didn't fall. And we live at this time. In America, in the world, it doesn't matter what country, if you're in the world right now, all the cults, whether political, governmental, corporate, or in the church, any system that's set up that's built on sand looks strong. And they can build their Tower of Babel. But it's until Jesus comes in, until God does something where he adds the water and then he divides the languages, that you start seeing, oh, wait, this isn't as strong as I thought it was. It actually fell to the ground. And so that's a hope for if you are of the Lord, that no matter what, even though no matter what happens, or how crazy the storm is, like if you're the Lord's, he won't let you go. You're his.
Light of the world is built on man. Light of the world is built on sand.
Correct.
And I had to, like, one of my, with Light of the World, because the title of it's wonderful. There's a lot of churches that are culty and they have amazing titles. But I had to go, oh, Light of the World. It was kind of like freaking me out. And so I was like, God, I want to read what you say about Light of the World. And Jesus says this in John 8:12. I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And I love that Jesus say that. If we follow him, we don't walk in darkness, but if we follow Paul Malcolmson, we do.
Yep. All right. Well, I apologize if I get a little bit, excited or whatever.
Passionate. It's okay.
But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And hope to see you back here soon. And have a good one.